Hello everybody, thank you for having me, as it were. Yes, some Kubernetes. Just a moment about me. So I've been working with process engines. I've enjoyed that evolutionary revolution, or revolutionary evolution, or whatever it was, Paul and Yoram. I've been doing JPPM since version 4, followed through activity, and now with Flowable. And I also, for my sins, worked for Tibco, and we built our own process engine once upon a time. So there's a little bit back me. I'm a bit of a standards guy, so if you want to talk BPMN standards, I'd like to talk about that. No disrespect, Misha, but CMMN, not my favourite. I'm beginning to be won over. I'm starting to see it. Oh, and DMN. Why has no one talked about DMN today? That is really good. Anyway, enough of that. So I don't know who I'm talking to, so give me a little bit of a clue. So how many people are more dev, and how many people are more ops, and how many people are businessy? So first of all, devs? Oh, okay. And any ops people around? Okay. And some business guys? Some business guys too. Okay, we've got a good spread. Okay, so I'm going to try and tailor it a little bit because I had a hunch there might be more developers than operations people. Okay, so to introduce the topic, Flowable's fantastic, works on a laptop like we've just seen, demonstrated many times, but it's also really important to be able to roll it out into production settings, and we've seen some of that with the AWS stuff. This is a bit of a different take. Not to say that microservices are bad, we do lots of microservices too, so I'm into that. But also, I mean, one of the things that I do is to run a platform where people can actually execute their own processes. So it's a sort of a process as a service type of a platform. And in that context, that's what sort of drove me to the Kubernetes stuff. So I have this idea which might hit or might not, but I like to think of the CLI, the command line interface, as the operations engineer's BIOS. This is the cloud native BIOS. So whichever of your cloud providers you like best, I'm personally a bit of a DigitalOcean man, but AWS also and Azure too have command lines. And this I would like to suggest to you is the cloud native BIOS to get you to the basic input-output system to get you up and running with your Kubernetes cluster. Because Kubernetes is your cloud-native operating system. So forget Windows, forget Linux, forget Mac, it's all about the Kubernetes. And when we talk about software as a service these days, and everybody, pretty much without exception, including UK government, are working happily in the cloud, we need a cloud-native operating system. Now, the final part of this triumvirate is Helm. Now, Helm, I'm not sure, anyone who's heard of Helm? Okay, good. Okay, so you can give me all the tips then. Does anybody want to come and do this one? It's Cloud Native Package Manager is what they describe themselves as, and I think it is very much the missing piece because I've been happily using Kubernetes to run Flowable instances for several months now. Oh, I just realised I need some power on this thing too, otherwise it all might disappear. Did someone say that they had a power? Yes. I've been using Kubernetes quite happily, but the one thing about that is that you can do your infrastructure as code. You can source control your Kubernetes files, but it still lacks something of that polish that you get from a package manager where you just say you want to install and go. So, okay, we've reached that point already. USB-C. USB-C, please, thank you. Well, I thought, what is a developer conference demonstration without making it a little bit hairy and flying a little by the seat of the pants? So let's see how we go here. Here I have, what do I have? I should have, with a little bit of luck, a cluster up and running, because otherwise that would be just too much. I did debate just before lunch whether building the cluster on the fly was going to be one step too far. It probably would be. So I have got a DigitalOcean cluster here which I set up earlier on this morning. I might just refresh that to make sure we haven't logged out. Okay, so I have my Flowfest cluster. I think I set it up with 2 nodes, did I? One pool with 2 nodes. They're modest, but they're not as modest as Philips. These bad boys, have got 4 gigabytes of RAM on them, largely because I'm running the database in the same node as all of the engines, and I've done no optimization, so I thought throw a little bit more at it. Okay, so I've got a cluster here. And over on this side, I might have a few little tips. Let's have a little look and see what we've got for a set of deployments. Is that small? It probably is, isn't it? Can I make it bigger? Possibly not. Let's just see if we can make that a little bit bigger. Well, that was marginally bigger, wasn't it? Maybe we won't go too far down that line. So what we've got here, we've got 2 pods. I've set up my Nginx ingress controller already, and that is all I've got. So what to say? To expose my cluster to the world, I need a controller. And now I'm going to install all the Flowable stuff. So we should be able to do a simple Helm install stable Postgres QL, don't forget the QL, and that will start going off. Oh, look, there we are. Okay, so let's have a little look at my pods, or let's have a look at my deployments. Okay, so I have a coiled chipmunk that is up and ready, running my database server. I might just have a little look and see what the password was, because that will be handy later. This is when I wish I could type faster. Okay, I've got a password, that's good. Let's check we can connect to the database. So a little bit of background on what I'm doing here. So for those that are not familiar with Helm, this is a Helm chart for PostgreSQL. Okay, and this is one of the features of the package manager is to give you notes that can help people like the ignorant me who's trying to actually be able to use some of this stuff having installed it. And so the tips here give me the ability to check various things without having to remember all of the controls. This is always super exciting, isn't it? Okay, so now I get to debug in real time. We might just Helm delete. I think what I've done is to install Postgres on top of Postgres. So I have a Postgres. Let's see the deployments. Why do I have no deployments? Helm list. Yes, I have. I've installed 2, haven't I? Okay, best laid plans and all of that. Okay, let's just try that again then, shall we? Is this the nuclear bunker setting in? Okay. Okay. Come on, command prompt. You know you want to. Okay, oh gosh, we've got 2 ingress controllers as well. Okay, so let's just check we have a database. I have an empty database, good stuff. Okay, so we may be back on track, we will see. Unsung Gopher PostgreSQL client deleted. Okay, right, so let's just have a little look and see what we've got and see if we are indeed back on track. Okay, so I've got an ingress and I've got a PostgreSQL. Grand. Whew, right, deep breath. Let's take a look over here. So for those of you that are familiar with Kubernetes, these will start to look familiar. Otherwise, I will try and give you a little whirlwind tour. So with Kubernetes, we need, it's all defined in YAML files. This is a very simple one. It's working on the basis of Flowable all. That'll be, for those of you familiar with the Docker containers that get published, that is the Flowable all-in-one. We've got tasks, admin, modeler, and the other one, identity management, all-in-one container. We've saying only pull the container if it's not already present. And some other things, most important of which is probably this config map. So it's not enormously important when we're using the all-in-one, because the all-in-one connects all of the different engines together within the same container. But as soon as you put, let's say we want to be more selective, we only want to expose the task interface because we don't want to expose admin to everybody. We can use the other containers, in which case then we have to be able to connect the task container to identity management, and that's done via configuration maps. So configuration maps, these are the things that we need to know about. Configuration map, I mean server port doesn't really matter. We're using the Postgres driver. We've got the URL for the Postgres database. But this is the important bit here. The identity management application is exposed on that domain name there, and that is the domain name that I set up earlier. So one of the things that I am not showing you today is actually how to script the domain names. So if you're spinning up an environment for different customers, they'll have their own domain names, or you'll want to give them a subdomain name of your domain, so you've got to do that DNS management as well. For the sake of time, I'm skipping over that, and I've already set up the domain, which is why I set up the cluster as well. Okay, so that will be how we configure, and I also need to tell some admin passwords to that. So we have now got a config map, and we have now got a deployment. Let's see what happens when we try using some of those. One of these. There's always one more tab I find is the right answer. Yeah, we're good. So, kube control. It's a Major Tom. Now I've completely forgotten what I'm trying to do. Apply -F. Config. First of all, we'll do the Flowable config map. Okay, and then we will do the deployment that I talked to you about. Okay, so let's have a little look now at what we've got. Okay, so we've got a flowable all. It's not ready yet, so that's probably what we would expect. Let's have a look at the pods. Okay. Now the third piece, in fact, actually, in the time it took me to check the pods, it is now ready. We can also check the logs, just to see if it is, in fact, up. Initialization completed. Okay, oh, that's interesting. So you guys didn't tell me. I've got my wrong JDBC connection. So we need to do get kube control. I'm a bit worried that this, we might find that this is interesting. So my config map, hello, config map. Icy angelfish is so yesterday. Today is the unsung gopher. Okay, and if you spotted closely, I did an apply, and that is because I now want to be able to do that again, not that one. Probably, because I was using the stable PostgreSQL. I haven't done any fanciness. We shall see. So then let's have a look at the pods. The flowable pod is running, but actually not doing anything very much, so we'll kill that off. Okay. And yep, I'm just checking my W4 CTR is different to my 2S4RR, so we have got a new pod aged 4 seconds. Okay, let's have another look at those logs. I'm glad I looked at the logs just now. 2S4R. Okay. And what do we have this time? Who said the password was wrong? Database connection.
Password. That's a password.
It is the password.
Generates a new one.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Excuse me. So echo $ Postgres. Okay, come on. Someone on the floor help me.
You need to run the command before with the kubectl.
Yeah, but I already told you I don't remember what that is. That one.
Yeah.
It's not the chipmunk anymore though, is it? Unsung gopher.
Without the QL.
See, once you get one error, they compound. Okay, let's see. You're quite right. Okay, we will apply the config map. Okay, let's have a look at the kube control pods. right? This time. Is anyone placing bets? I reckon that's looking good. We're not looking at the illegal operation on Groovy. Oh, good. Well done. I didn't want to mention it. Java 11, as you say. Okay, so what have we got now? So we should have some working pods. Let me see. What we have not got is any services. Let's have a look at services. So let's just recap. We've got our config map, which contains the things that we need to wire different containers together, secrets and the like. We've got a deployment, we've got a pod, but we do not yet have any services. So let's see if we can apply -f CFG. We're doing the all-in-one service. I didn't show you that one, did I? Once you've seen one YAML file, you've seen them all. This one is the least interesting. It's a node port type you see down here at the bottom. And it's on port 80, which is the port that we're using for everything. It is of kind service. So this is what we will now connect our ingress to be able to see this in the outside world. What I should be able to see is that inside the cluster, I now have my ingress that I told you about, which is just the controller at this stage, is exposed to the outside world. But none of the other services are exposed to the outside world. So now we're going to connect that up, which we do with, not that one, that one. And here you see is where we put the host. And I told you that I've already mapped, hopefully, if I haven't made a mistake with that, I've already mapped this domain to the IP address. So let's have a little look. Apply -f CFG. Okay, let's have a look at the services. Let's have a look at the pods. Moment of truth, guys. Let's go over here and we will have a look at the infamous flowable.noprocess.com. Well, we've got something. There's an Apache Tomcat running there. So if I should have shown you before, the ingress would have given us a 404. So we've got something. Let's have a little look and see what that something is, shall we? Shall we have a modeler? Redirecting beautifully to the identity management. Logging in with the extremely secure admin test. And this is a brand new environment. We haven't got anything installed. What should we do about that? Let us import an app. What did I say? This one. Okay, so we've now got a little inquiry app. It is about the simplest thing that I could imagine doing, which is something, this is just a little tick that I have. I have a none start event, which is to be run from a form within the Flowable environment. Thankfully, undo works. And I have another start event so that I can start it externally by firing an JSON payload over, well, what that should be is over a Kafka queue is what I meant to say, but I haven't quite got there yet. Either which way, we will respond to the inquiry. So a very, very trivial process. We're not doing any meaningful business here today, I'm afraid to say, but the process should be comprehensible at least. So let's have a little look and test it. I will publish my application. And I will then, let's go and have a look and check that I haven't broken anything. So I should be able to start my Flowfest process. Please reply to me at my usual address. And my inquiry is, can anyone help me learn German in a day. Okay, good. So process engine running. All the goodness that you're used to. So let's see in my slides how far we've got. Okay, well that went pretty much as expected, I guess. Was everyone paying really close attention to all of those YAML files? I've got some good news for you, okay? So the YAML files are now all nicely packaged up. Thank you to Ivo, who wasn't able to join us today. But there is, as of yesterday, it can't really beat the SAP announcement for yesterday, but as of yesterday, there is a Helm repository published where you can now use the Helm chart. So instead of all of that, if we are going to tempt the demo gods one more time, we should be able to if I go here, this is actually running not off the repo, having just publicized it. I've got a local copy which I have not yet updated, but inside Evo's resources folder, we have those YAMLs, in actual fact, with much more exciting things in there, like checking health, so that the pod won't announce that it's up and running until it is indeed up and running. Always a good tip. That was what you saw my pod reporting running before, when in fact it had a stack trace. So definitely use the published chart. It's better than mine. So what did I want to do? I wanted to Helm install. I'm going to have to do something different now, aren't I? So the one movable part, it is as simple as this. Helm app add Helm. I have to remember to be German. See, this is the one thing I do know about speaking German, is you put the verb at the end. So it is Helm repo add, not Helm add repo, Flowable. And then you'll be able to install from the repo. But I'm not going to do that today. We are going to just look. This is the user configurable part. I thought it was called Vim. V. This is the user configurable part for the Helm chart. So this contains all of the things that you might potentially want to change. Don't stress, because honestly, you don't need to change many of them. You will be tuning the memory. I think probably allocating a gigabyte of RAM to the Flowable IDM is probably a little bit overkill, but you know, we can tune that. The one thing I probably do need to do though in here is that Postgres thing. So the chart covers everything. Now, where I showed you earlier that I was deploying the Flowable all-in-one container, this is deploying each of the separate containers. And let's say, for instance, you don't want to deploy the administrative console, or you, as in my case here, I don't want to deploy a database because I've already got a database available. You can configure just that single line using the enabled flag. So you can do, so you'll probably end up doing something along the lines of Helm install Flowable minus name f minus set, and then you can set, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was something along the lines of Postgres enabled dot equals false. Okay, so you don't have to, what I'm saying to you is you don't have to know and care intimately about each of those lines in the YAML file. Chances are there's only a couple or three that you want to manage. You can do this way, but in my case I have got to use the whole shebang. So I'm going to do minus name. Okay, fingers crossed. And that, I mean, ridiculously, and I do mean ridiculously, that in one command you deployed an entire Flowable cluster. Just, I mean, if anybody's sort of still sitting out there doubting the power of Kubernetes and charts to really revolutionize the cloud space, then doubt no more. Okay, so what have we got now? Should just have, they're starting to come up, we can see. We've got the all that I had running previously, which I probably ought to kill. In fact, I probably definitely ought to kill because that's going to be, who reckons it's going to be clashing on the ports? We might see. Let's delete it. Yeah. Okay, so that's coming down, and yes, indeed, it was clashing for the port. So we're going to see whether we have now got a brand new system using the chart. So it should be empty. I'm probably asking for trouble, to be honest with you, having done the deployment first. So what I'm going to do, Helm has a notion of releases, so you can roll back and roll forward. So if you stuff things up, you can, which by the way is my specialty, you can roll back and forward. But on this occasion, I'm going to delete it altogether with a purge. Okay, we see them terminating, going down, going down. Okay. Okay. Come play with me. Sorry? Yeah, it's probably the DB password, isn't it? I thought I looked for that.
You need to set the URL for JDBC.
Apparently not. I must admit, that was a question mark in my mind as well, but yeah. So I'm going to guess it's using the cluster IP address with a local subnet.
Because the name is Postgres and your deployed instance is BPMN.
Yeah, I did match that, didn't I? I did match that. Yeah. Are they going to come up? Okay, so this is, I've noticed, and this is perhaps where I needed to be a little bit more generous with my cluster, or otherwise a little bit less generous with my configuration. But I have noticed that starting all of these in separate containers does take a little longer. Let's see if we're there yet. So tasks should be running. Admin is the only one not running according to that.
Does the service node redirect to the new containers? Or is that automatic?
It is a good point. I'm thinking no. That would be a real shame, though, because now I've got to tear the whole thing down. No, the load balancer will, because I have put this up and turn it down without having to remap the domain name this morning. So, although I've just killed the thing now. I think we might revert at this stage, seeing what time is doing, to a few slides. So what I was going to show you is resilience. The thing that I've replaced with this was a very simple Spring Boot application that contained a CRM and a Flowable process engine, the whole thing in one JVM, not even containerized. And as you could probably imagine, running that 24/7 does kind of keep people up at night sometimes. So the beauty of this is that you can kill the pods as you've seen me doing, and then they just come back on their own. So there's a great deal more resilience here. The other thing to say about it, of course, is that Kubernetes gives us scaling, so you can you've got that elasticity, which is one of the key promises of the cloud, to be able to scale up automatically. DigitalOcean offers the auto scale, or you can control it manually as well, depending on whether you want to throttle throttle and save money, or keep the service up at all costs. Yeah, I talked to you a little bit about the non-containerized past. And then there's a couple of things that I just sort of throw out there, because in my mind I haven't really fully got the solution or answer to this yet. I was very interested to see Evo's treating the database as part of the chart. So there's an attraction to that in my mind, because I can now treat the entire process platform as a single unit. And when I connect up my events to, everything that I care about preserving can be published as an event, and I can collect all of those in Elastic Cloud or some such. And so then the stuff that is in flight has a lower value. So being able to actually I can't honestly quite bring myself to say treat the process engine as being stateless, but it's certainly much more stateless. And for certain use cases, for certain loads, like the straight-through processing that we saw used earlier, that would be a lot more. That would be a lot more useful, but I don't know. So I guess in my mind, I'm still probably hanging on to the idea that the database needs to be outside of the chart. But you can all come and tell me why I'm wrong about that later on. The other thing that is quite attractive to this, at least in promise, but I can't tell you honestly that I've tested it yet, is the idea of supporting multi-tenancy. So in other words, customer A of my CRM and customer B of my CRM being able to be hosted within a single Kubernetes cluster by using Kubernetes namespaces to isolate them. So there's quite a nice isolation there. But I don't know what the overheads are. In fact, I was just having a conversation over morning coffee about whether there might be a bit of a pain in resources to doing things that way. But yeah, so some food for thought